Robben Island, in Dutch and in Afrikaans, a robben, a rob, is a seal, and thus Seal Island. South Africa does not have a lot of islands. In fact, the whole of Africa as a continent has very few islands off the coast compared to almost every other continent. Of the few islands that do exist off the coast, one of the most famous by far in South Africa is Robben Island. Created as a World Heritage Site in 1999, this infamous island has become a must-stop destination while visiting the Cape. With everything going on in America at the moment, I think our visit had an even bigger impact on us than it would have had at a different time. But even in much less politically divided times, it packs a major punch. Leaving from Nelson Mandela Gateway, the 30-minute ferry ride starts by giving you views of the V&A waterfront complex, and then also the working harbour that you pass through. My friends tease me that it's impossible to go on vacation with me without ending up on a boat. Even when we went to Yellowstone National Park, we ended up on a boat. We were trying to imagine a place where I could not find a boat for us, and someone suggested the Sahara Desert. And of course, my reply was that I had always wanted to do a boat trip down the Nile River. After that, you are treated to views of Table Mountain, and if you are lucky, seals and even dolphins and whales in the bay. Robben Island is actually much bigger than most people expect. The island is just over 2 square miles, about 5.2 square kilometers. In addition to the prison, there's a town, a lighthouse, graveyards, quarries, a Muslim shrine, a neglected airstrip, and defensive fortifications, many that date from the Second World War. This still leaves plenty of space for wildlife as well. At the island, you arrive at a small harbour, now pretty well protected, but the multitude of wrecks around the island attest to the fact that the crossing and the landing used to be a lot more dangerous. As a child, I once had the opportunity to visit the island, but the visit was cancelled because the weather meant that the crossing, and especially the landing, was deemed much too dangerous. The first part of your tour of the island is a bus tour. Generally, it stops off at several places, but because it was raining the day that we were there, we mostly just drove around. Yet we were super lucky. Our tour was led by a guide that is now retired, but still helps out occasionally. I have heard from many people that your experience on the tour depends greatly on who your guide is. I wrote down his name, but unfortunately I seem to have lost the note. I don't think he would mind that I'm not naming him, as he mentioned several times that he's not speaking just for himself. He is speaking for anybody who has ever served time on the island. One of his most powerful testimonies happened as we were passing the church. An entire community lived on the island, and as was tradition, when a child was born, the church bells rang. The prisoners on the island found this devastating. It reminded them either of children that they might never see again, or the children that would never be born, as most expected to never leave the island. After the drive around the island and many more powerful remembrances, we stopped at the prison. In a way, I'm glad it was a grey and dreary day. The day very much fitted the mood. Grey buildings, grey rock. Even the plants in the prison seemed grey and dreary. It made the fun, colourful pictures painted on the wall seemed almost sacrilege. The prison museum does a really good job on highlighting not only the famous prisoners like Mr. Mandela, but also the long list of other prisoners who all spent time on the island. Our guide was a former political prisoner himself, sent to the island at the age of 16. 16, that number is so powerful, to be locked up for the rest of your life from age 16. He was not able to deal with the imprisonment and ended up in the psychiatric section of the prison. He recounts that he did not do well after he released, and when he was contacted to ask if he would return as a guide, he couldn't even start to consider ever setting foot on the island again. Mr. Mandela himself reached out to many of the former inmates to ask them to return. He said that they would find healing in healing the island. And according to the guide, that is what motivated him to come back. And he has to admit now that he was correct. We were a very somber group that made our way to Mr. Mandela's cell. And honestly, the most scary part of me was seeing it and thinking, well, that's not too bad. I've seen worse. I've seen worse on the news happening right now. Many of us left in tears. In fact, it took me a few tries to be able to record this voiceover. But the island is healing in many other ways too. By the 1800s, all the penguins on the island had been hunted to extinction. But now there are over 3,000 penguins nesting on the island again. Less than there was 20 years ago, but they're hanging in there and they're breeding. And they are creating just about the only splash of color and life in this entire video. Strange for a black and white bird. As we arrived back at Nelson Mandela Gateway, we were greeted by a few harbor seals. A space has been created for them next to the jetty, the Robben of Robben Island. And maybe that is the biggest lesson of them all, that creating a space for others does not diminish what we have. It enhances it. Wow, that was a deeper video than most that I have done. Thank you for watching this far. I appreciate you all.